what's going on, guys? Welcome back. Today I actually was not going to do a video. It's Sunday. I had no plans to do a video. Didn't care about doing one, and I was running through the Soc Level 1 beginning ones because I told you guys I was just going to skip them because most of them were just like, hey, read this, whatever. And I was doing the Pyramid of Pain one, and there was a certain wording that you will see we'll get to that I instantly knew I had to make a video about because it's the best way I've seen it explained, and it's the way I learned it years and years ago. And I just introduced this to someone, a couple analysts, a few weeks ago, and it blew their mind. And it's just the wording. It's not a complex concept or anything. So I want to make sure that you guys have access to this too, because sometimes when like things click, it really helps. And this is one of those things that clicked for me years and years ago, and I want to make sure, try to make it click for you guys. I can't say it will because everybody learns differently, but okay. First things first, this is well-renowned concept is being applied to cybersecurity solutions. Okay, blah, blah, right? The Pyramid of Pain. So what is this, right? It's kind of counterintuitive to what you think, right? The understanding the Pyramid of Pain concept as a threat hunter incident response SOC analyst is important, but I'm going to show you what I mean by it's counterintuitive to what you think, right? So you would think like what they're saying is the attack is getting closer to the top, but the reality is they're showing you different ways you can make it harder for the attacker. Okay, so let's go ahead and get into it, and then we'll go through it. And that's why you'll notice here it's trivial, easy, simple, annoying, challenging, tough. They're not talking about an attack happening. Well, they are, but they're talking about where you can stop and make things like, for instance, if you just stop an attacker's hash, right? It's easy for them to get around. If you stop their IP address, it's easy to make a new one. If you stop their domain name, it starts getting a little bit harder, but still pretty easy. You just stand a new one up. Then you start annoying them, and then it gets really hard on them. So that's the concept, right? All right. So before we get started, guys, please check out the Discord below and check out the Patreon. I'm adding a ton of content in there. A Patreon video will be going out right after this one. I want you guys to just check them out. You don't have to like them. Don't have to do anything. I release one video on Patreon a month for free, and then I have one video a week on there for the paid tiers, along with one-on-ones, my notes, all kinds of stuff. So let's go ahead and get into it. Also, the Discord, we do live streams usually weekly, so check that out also. All right, so as for Microsoft, the hash value is a numeric value. So that's fine. Most of you guys know what a hash is. If you don't know what a hash is, it is taking a bunch of data. This is just simplifying it. I know this is not the definition, so just know that. This is taking a bunch of data, whatever it is, a file, a password, or whatever, using an algorithm and making it a predefined character string, right? So that could be however many characters is based on the hashing algorithm. But the point of it is, right, it's not sorry, I had something in my eye. It is not encryption, okay? It is a one-way hash. It's a one-way algorithm. What that means is you can't reverse it. So some people will say, well, what's the point of that? Well, the point of it is, right, when I store your password, for instance, right, that hash is stored there. The computer, every time you type a password, can hash it and compare it, right? It never has to decrypt because it's not encryption. It never has to decrypt that. I don't know why I put encryption in quotes because it's not encryption, but it never has to decrypt that hash because it can't. It's one way. It can only be hashed, right? The reason that's valuable is because when I'm downloading software, when I'm making something, whenever I do whatever, right? Like my Linux course that's available on the Discord and Patreon, you get the hash for it, right? It's to ensure that when you download it, you get the hash, and then you compare it and you say, yes, nothing has changed on this. That's really important because what do attackers do that we know, right? They start naming things like, you'll see one of the ones they do here is they name it PowerShell, but they use Punycode attacks. So they basically change the characters to make it look like PowerShell, but it's just like a circle instead of an O and stuff like that, right? So they use known applications or software, and they try to convince you that it's real. Well, we don't have to worry as much about being tricked if we compare the hash. Well, computers can do this for you as well, EDRs, antivirus, this has been around for a long time. They will actually check the hash of a file, and if it's known malicious, they'll say, hey, no, don't run this, right? That's how you'll see like, if you have any antivirus, you'll see like, hey, you have a signature update or something like that. That's what it is, okay? So all that, in my opinion, is explained better than the way they explained it. So you can read about what hashing algorithms you want. It doesn't really matter if you know which one's which. You can learn about them if you want, but like I said, it doesn't really matter if you know which one's which, because the hash depends on what you're doing it for. Some of these, like this one, it says MD5 is not considered cryptographically secure. That's because there is collision, but the reality is if you take an MD5 hash of a file and then you take an MD5 hash of the file you download or whatever and you compare them, right? If you're trying to check software, it doesn't really matter, because the likelihood of you getting the same hash as the file you're expecting and it not being the same file is so insane that you'll be fine. Now, when you get deeper into cybersecurity, you're going to want to know the differences, but right now you don't need to. Okay. A hash is not considered to be cryptographically secure if two files have the same hash value, which I just said. That's collision, right? So that means theoretically you could have the same hash produced with two different things. So for instance, if my password was Stuffy24 and then your password was password123, theoretically, because of the way the algorithm works, there could be a chance that they have the same hash and therefore both passwords work. Keep in mind, it's very minute amount that happens to, but it's enough that you don't want to, it's not worth the risk. Okay, so you've probably read ransomware reports in the past where security breaches provide hashes related to blah, blah, blah. You can check out those reports here if you're interested in an example. Various tools can be used to do hash lookups. This is something that you should be using all the time as a cyber analyst, cyber security specialist, any pen tester, anything. One thing I'll say, I get a lot of questions on the Discord, because that's where I usually communicate with my community a lot more, on the Discord. And I get a lot of questions in there like, hey, why don't you show us some of the tools you use? Why don't you do this? This is why I won't use or release the tools I use during pen testing. I make custom tools and I use them custom, meaning I use them on my own. I will never give them out. Why? A couple of reasons. One, they've never been uploaded to VirusTotal. The second you upload a hash to VirusTotal, it is now recorded. What that means is if I pay for VirusTotal, somebody can use that, right? Somebody can take the indicators and look at them. So be cautious when you're uploading your own stuff to VirusTotal, because anytime somebody goes to check the hash, it'll show, oh, this has been flagged before. This has been looked at, right? And people can download it and analyze it and stuff like that. I don't want that, right? So because you'll see, we're going to go through the pyramid of pain. When that happens, you just make my life way harder, right? If I'm using a tool that is popped on VirusTotal, for instance, that means the whole world knows that tool exists and what it does and has its signatures identified. That means during my pen test, it's going to be a nightmare because I can't use that tool. I'm going to have to recreate the tool, or I'm going to have to use a different tool, right? So, and that's one of the reasons why I won't upload it, right? Because until it starts getting caught on pen tests, I don't want it to, right? Keep in mind also, VirusTotal has an agreement with some of these security vendors. Well, they'll share information. So just know that. Okay. So they upload the hash. You can see this is actually a really good thing. If you are working for a company and someone downloads something and you're not sure what it is, this is a great way to check real fast. Because you can check the hash, you can check domain names, you can check a lot and see, has it ever been reported? Here you can see 14 people reported this. That's quite a bit. 14 people in 28 days reported it as something wrong. That's quite a bit. So now below the hash is in the screenshot above, you can see the file name. Yep, right there. Okay, now here's the Meta Defender Cloud. Very similar. You can see here, they have 8 out of 34. Still quite a bit, right? 1 is sometimes, depending on what it is, too much for me, right? So, and the reason I say sometimes is because sometimes people will report stuff that clearly is not. It's like a text file and it has nothing executable in it. It's not Word. It's just a text file or something, and it may report it. And you're like, no, that's all right. Now, as you might have noticed, it is really easy to spot malicious file if we have the hash in our arsenal. True. It's really easy to get the hash, right? Depending on what you're using. Here you go. Get file hash. Look how easy that was, right? And then they use the OpenVPN MSI file, and they used MD5 here, right? We just said MD5 is not cryptographically secure. Why'd they use it? Because the MD5 hash of this is not going to match any other document. Now, could it theoretically? Yes. Do you know how long that attacker would have to find or have to search to find a document in your that like you're expecting and get the hash of that and then create a tool to try and make the hash match? It would be, I don't even know if it's or if it's mathematically possible. I'm not a math expert by any means, but I guess theoretically it could be, but God, that would take forever. I mean, you're talking, you'd have to make changes to this document millions of times to make it match this hash, and maybe you could do it, but if someone knows if you can do that, like intentionally, I know passwords, it's not that hard. It's not as hard, I should say, but with a file or something, let me know in the comments, because I'm actually genuinely curious if that's done. I would be impressed. I don't think it'd be worth the juice would be worth the squeeze in that, but I would be very interested in seeing it. Okay, so where are we at now? We're still on hash values. Okay, making sure. Okay, so now you can see echo append the hash. They're adding something to the MSI file. They're adding this append the hash to it, right? They're making it, they're adding this text to it. Now when they run the hash, you can see two completely different hashes. You notice that? Totally separate. It's because if you change anything about that file, anything, I mean, even one dot on the file, it's a completely separate hash. That is by design, right? So now analyze the report associated with blah, blah, blah here. So they give us the report. What's the file name? And you can see that's what all of these are. Which one is it? It's this one right here. Well, you can see the file name right there, sales receipt 5606.xls. All right, we can close most of these, but all of those are just links. So there's your sales receipt 5606. So this is where we start getting into what exactly is this pyramid of pain, right? We're making it painful for the attacker. That's the goal here as a defender. So what do we start with? We start with the hashes. If we start blocking hashes, right, or vice versa, you block everything and whitelist hashes using things like app blocker and stuff like that, that's when it's relatively easy to get around, right? Even with basic antivirus, it's just going to check signatures. We all know that, right? That's a simple solution, but it's relatively easy to get around, hence why it's an easy. Now, let's look at the IP addresses. Most of you know what an IP address is, right? But you can see in the pyramid page, IP addresses are indicated with the color green. That means pretty easy, right? From a defense standpoint, knowledge of the IP address an adversary uses can be valuable. So this here, a common defense tactic is to block, drop, or deny inbound requests from IP addresses on your parameter or external firewall. I will say, this is an outdated methodology in a sense of, if you just block my IP address, I can just change it in 10 seconds, right? It's really easy, and I can come back. That's fine. Don't stop doing it. I will say that. I've seen people in the field that will say, like, well, they're just going to change IPs anyway, so just, like, don't do it. That's a terrible idea, in my opinion. I'm trying to think of an analogy for it, but, like, the reality is, yes, they will, but one thing that you're trying to do as a defender, what you're trying to do is not stop the attack necessarily, or not try to completely fix everything, because that's not possible. There's going to be holes in your defense, always. It's kind of like, I'll give you an example. It's kind of like, I'm a huge history buff, if you guys don't know. So I love World War II. So it's like being on the front lines in Germany, and you're like at the Battle of Bastogne, and you're holding the front line and you're shooting, right? And someone's like, hey, I know you're shooting, it's great, but you're actually not really hitting anybody because everybody's hunkered down in their foxholes. And you're like, okay, and then someone pops up and you take a shot and they go, hey, I know you're trying to hit them, but you're not going to. Do you stop? I mean, I wouldn't, because what happens when you stop? If you just stop shooting completely, they're going to advance forward, right? Your goal as a defender is not to stop them dead in their tracks at this point. Your goal as a defender is to slow them down. Make it as hard as possible. That's where the pyramid of pain comes in. I want it to be so painful to get into my network that you go, screw this, dude. This is not worth it. And that's what happens. I'll tell you right now. That's the difference between, unless you're like Microsoft, NSA, DoD, like these big entities that have a lot of value, these APTs are not going for you. Now, there's big companies out there that the APTs are going for, but I'm saying unless you're one of those, a Fortune 500, something like that, they're not targeting you. They're opportunistic, meaning they're going to scan the entire internet. They're going to look for opportunities to find a way in, right? They're going to do social engineering. They're going to send out mass emails, all that stuff, but they're looking for an opportunity. They're not targeting. So what that means is if you make it very difficult, right, you're making it painful. They might get one step up and then 2 steps back, and then 1 step up and 2 steps back. If you're making it very painful, they're going to move on, right? You just never want to be the low-hanging fruit. That's always the goal, right? Now, I'm not telling you to just go, oh, it's fine. We have some holes. We'll fix them, whatever. No, try your best, but you'll never fix everything. But keep in mind, your goal as a responder is slow them down at all costs, because if you slow them down, it gives you more time to respond, and it gives them less time to not only attack, but also they're going to now have to change their methodology and completely revamp the attack. And a lot of times that's not worth it to them. Okay, so off my soapbox. So point is, hey, you're getting some IPs here and you see they're changing IPs and changing countries. Cool. Keep blocking them, because every time you block them, they have to go change IPs every time. Now, there's tools that can auto-rotate IPs for you. That's fine. But you keep blocking them, and guess what? They're going to eventually, it's going to cost them a lot of money, because they're going to have to keep buying IPs, right? Or renting them or whatever. There's other tools that can do it, like using your AWS tenant, stand it up really fast and stuff like that. But it's going to get annoying for them. So it's easy, trivial. They'll just change. But don't stop. That's long stories. Don't stop blocking them. According to Akami, fast flux is a DNS technique used by botnets to hide phishing, web proxies, blah, 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 behind compromised hosts acting as proxies. So what's this mean? It means right there, it's used by botnets to hide phishing, web proxy, malware, all that stuff. They're using the hosts to jump around, right? Acting as proxies. So I'm sending requests from here, same thing, right? Okay, so the primary concept of fast flux network is having multiple IP addresses associated with a domain name. So instead of you being like, hey, block this IP, there's 20 IPs that go there, because it's a proxy, right? And it's constantly changing. So Palo Alto created a great fictional scenario to explain fast flux. I recommend check it out. It is quite interesting. So now it says, read the following report from any.run for this sample here to answer the questions. So read the following report. What is the first IP address? The first IP address the malicious process 1632 attempts to communicate with. All right. This is just any.run's website. Here we go. What is the first IP address the malicious process ID of 1632 is looking for? So we need to find the process 1632. And we could just search it, which we might do here in a sec. Let's do this. 1632. Okay. None of those work. Perfect. Okay. So, what is the first IP address the malicious process PID 1632 communicates with? That's fine. Process 1632. There we go. Okay. There we go. So, it is some malicious file bin.exe. Okay. Easy enough. That was. And then if you go down to the bottom of any.run, you will see your connections. Some 50. 87 136 52 443. I don't know if you guys can see that. It's pretty small. Let me zoom in here. There you go. So there's the 50.87.136.52.443, craftinglegacy.com. 50.87.136.52, right there. Read the following report to answer the question, what's the first domain name? Same thing, craftinglegacy.com. It's right there. Okay, so we talked about the IP addresses, but let's go to the domain name. So we just said it's craftinglegacy.com. So now we've blocked their IP addresses. It's trivial for them to just stand up a new one, right? We know that. That's fine. They're going to keep doing that. We're going to keep doing it, right? It's a cat and mouse game. Now, what isn't trivial, it's simple, but it's not trivial, is what if we block communications to and from that domain name? Well, they're using that domain name for whatever, probably their C2 communications, right? For instance, if they're using a fake, the one you see a lot in some of these examples on here is like Google Analytics and stuff, or Microsoft's, whatever. If they're using that, maybe you need it, but block it while the attack's going on, right? While you're give yourself time, block the domain name that they're using, right? And then that will give them or give you time to start evaluating. They then have to change either A, their domain name, or B, they have to change something in their payload to point to something else, right? They might have 4 or 5 different domain names set up, and once you block one, you see it start, all the communications start to rotate to a different one, and then you have to block that one. And so it may be slow, but you can see you're slowing them down as well. So we're moving up to domain names. So now you can see we're in the teal, so we're getting past the green, we're getting past the simple stuff, right? They can be taught simply as mapping an IP address. Okay, if you don't know what a domain name is, I recommend you check out maybe this one, the DNS and detail room, because you want to know what a domain name is. Domain names can be a little more of a pain for the attacker to change. See, because the thing is, here's what happens. The attacker can change it, and that's fine. It's very easy to do, but it's not easy if you want a domain name that actually has SSL certs and things like that on it, right? If you want it to look as legit as possible, it takes a little bit of time, and it takes a little bit of setup. Now, is it a lot? No. Probably could script it and have it done pretty quick, but guess what? You're slowing them down at every stop. If I'm an attacker and I hit you, right? However I do it, and I notice I have a connection, boom, it's blocked. I'm going to be like, well, okay. Send another one with a different IP. Boom, it's blocked. I'm going to be like, okay, these people are paying attention. It's kind of frustrating, but that's fine. We'll just change it, right? We'll just keep doing the IP address. No big deal. It's pretty easy to do. And then I have a domain name. And then you notice, crap, now I can't communicate to that domain name from their network. Well, now I'm going, well, this is fucking annoying, right? Because I have a good attack. I'm getting in, but I can't communicate, right? And so you're sitting there and you're like, okay, well, that's annoying. So then you start changing the domain names, right? And you can see this starts to irritate. And when I say irritate, I'm not saying the attacker might actually sit there and be mad. They might. I would be. I'd be frustrated. But it's going to make it to a certain point, right? Attackers have playbooks just like defenders. And at a certain point, it's not worth the squeeze. The juice is not worth the squeeze. We're going to waste so much time and effort on this one thing. It's not worth it, man. And they move on to the next one, right? Because they have 55 companies they're sending these to, right? So now, malicious Sodinakabi. Perfect. C2 command and control domains. So these are malicious domains, right? This campaign, they had all these domain names that they had. And you can see a lot of them look somewhat legit, right? TasteWilliamsburg.com. I wouldn't inherently think that's malicious, right? Friendsandburgers.com. I wouldn't think that's malicious. I'd be like, hey, why are you going to friendsandburgers.com, you weirdo? But some of these obviously look a little bit more malicious. I trust. I'd be like, yeah, maybe I don't trust. You know what I mean? Now, you see here, it says not secure, right? That's what I was saying, is if you want it to look legit, you have to stand up SSL certs. And sophisticated attackers will do that and have actual certifications on their sites. And that's the difference between these two. So if you do this, if you see that not secure, most companies and most people know not to go onto them. But That's what I'm saying is when you block their domain name, it frustrates them because of that. Because I can stand a new domain name up in 10 seconds, right? I can go buy one at GoDaddy.com or whatever in 10 seconds. But to get an actual cert on self-hosted and things like that and buying domain names, it starts to become cumbersome. Now, this is a puny code attack, which we were talking about earlier, which is it looks the same, but the reality is they just use a different character. So you can use a lot of different characters, and you can make it look, you guys understand, like you can make Facebook look like Facebook with zeros instead of O's by using certain Unicode, ASCII characters and stuff like that. You guys know exactly what that looks like, right? So you can see attackers usually hide malicious domains under URL shorteners. This is another one. A URL shortener is a tool that creates a short and unique URL will redirect to the specified website, blah, blah, blah. Now, one thing I will say is a lot of people, especially getting into the industry, a lot of younger guys have asked me this question a lot. Why would I just never click on a URL shortened link? Like, that seems insane, right? Like, why would people send that? I get that all the time. Like, but the difference is there is legitimate use cases for it. And that's the thing that's kind of like, do you train people to never click them? Maybe. But keep in mind, there are legitimate use cases. For instance, let's say you're a marketing person at your company. Okay, cool. I'm going to send you a link, right? Well, I'm going to send you a link, but I have to track my metrics as a marketing person. Most people know that, right? Well, by the time I send you a link, because I have to host a website that's going to keep track of, it's basically going to be a redirect, and it's going to just keep track of who's accessing the link. That's intentional, right? I need to track who's accessing the link because I need to know how many people are clicking on my stuff. Like, am I actually getting any traction here? Is the marketing campaign working? Whatever. Well, I'm going to have a redirect. I'm going to have a URL, with a redirect and everything else. The URL could be, freaking a paragraph long by the time it's done. Well, if I send that out to everybody in email, they're going to be like, whoa, I've seen people that are trained really well look at a link, and the second they see it's like a paragraph, they're like, I'm not clicking that. I'm going to investigate that thing. And there may be nothing wrong with it, but it just doesn't look the same as every other URL. So they just use things like URL shorteners, and they just make it a quick little, hey, check out this link. And when you click it, it just auto redirects you and you don't even notice. And all it is so that they can track and say, hey, cool, I got 1 click there. I got 2 clicks there. And they can go to their boss and say, hey, this campaign worked really well. We got 5,000 clicks, right? That's a good use case for it, right? Attackers use it the same way, right? They make it try to look legit because if they use a URL that people are familiar with, for instance, Bitly, Google, people will probably click on it, right? Now, here's something that a lot of people don't know. Did you know you can add a plus to it and it will automatically show you where it's going? That's really nice, right? So keep that in mind. Okay, these are non-existent, so don't try them, I guess. But now, when you view connections in any run, this is why you do this stuff like this. View them in there, right? This shows the recorded HTTP request and the detonation on the sample. So if you don't know AnyRun is a sandbox. So you put it in there, it will run through the URL and it detonates, right? If there's actually anything to detonate. But it will show you everything that happens, including screenshots if you have the paid version, I believe. So you can see, even if that tiny URL or whatever works, I don't block the tiny URL because that's a redirect to something. I'm going to block the domain. So I need the actual domain name. So I could do something like this with the plus. I would be hesitant to do this. The main reason I'm hesitant to do this has nothing to do with tiny URL, Bitly, Google, any of that. It's more to do with myself. I don't want to make the mistake, if this is malicious, of accidentally going to it without clicking or without adding that plus sign. But it is a good reference if you need it. I would put it in something like AnyRun, VirusTotal, stuff like that. All right. Now the connections, you can see this tab shows the recorded requests. So these are the actual requests, right? And then you can see here, and you can see it tells you what's going on. They're downloading stuff. So if I go to a website or someone sends me a link to a website and the website's supposed to be for me to upload a file and I start seeing downloads, I'm going to be like, ooh, what the hell? Now, you can see here, you can actually see the connections, right? So now you see UDP traffic. For a regular person, that might not make sense, but if I'm supposed to go to your website to just view your website or something, and I'm starting to see UDP traffic, I'm like, what the hell? Why would I get UDP traffic on your marketing website, right? So pay attention to weird requests. And keep in mind, this runs in a sandbox, so this is not on any machine. That's really nice. Now, this shows DNS requests made since the detonation of the sample. So they detonated the sample, that's what they call it, right? And they are making DNS requests, right? And you can see accounts.google, blah, 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 blah. And you can see what it's doing is malware will make these DNS requests simply to see, can I access the internet? Because if I can't, I'm probably in a sandbox. If I'm in a sandbox, don't detonate. Don't do what you're supposed to do. If I can, if I get a good response, detonate. And that's pretty simple, right? They do that on purpose because they don't want to be busted. So just know, if you can get the domain names, block them, it's going to be a pain in their ass, and it's going to be slow, right? All right, so now we're going to go to this report, provide the first suspicious domain request you receive, and then it says use the rest of them. I don't agree using the rest of them because you'll see, but you see the DNS requests. The very first one is craftinglegacy.com. We already talked about that one, right? There's craftinglegacy.com. It's the very first one. Now, the reason I say I don't see this is you don't need the report for any of these questions. So now, what term refers to an address used to access websites? That's a domain name. What type of attack uses Unicode? That's the puny code attack that we just talked about. And then here it's saying, hey, go to this website or tell us the redirect. You go here, put a plus at the end, and you'll see, hey, this redirects you to tryhackme.com. There you go. All right, now we're getting into the annoying stuff. Now we're really going to irritate them, right? This is where we start to really make the attacker decide, are you going to keep going with us or are you going to move on? Because if you keep attacking us, keep in mind as an attacker, right? Your goal is to not get caught until you can actually do whatever your action is, whether it's ransomware, extortion, whatever. Our goal is to slow you down enough to say, by time you get there, we already have a full-blown incident response team set up, right? Because we've slowed it down enough that we already are ready for you, right? Because you may be in, and that's fine, but we're tracking everything you're doing. We're blocking it as it comes, and we're prepared for this, right? That's what the attackers are looking to avoid. All right, so now on this level, the attacker will feel more annoyed and frustrated if you can detect it. Keyword is if, right? All right, so host artifacts are the traces. So host artifacts, traces or observables that the attackers leave. The attackers leave something. There's an artifact somewhere, right? This is a good example. Suspicious process execution from Word. So when Word.exe running, not that suspicious, right? But then this weird random application running underneath it, that's weird, right? Here's another one. Suspicious events followed by opening a malicious application. So you open this WinWord, right? Don't think anything of it. But then you look at the events after and all this stuff's going on. Well, that's weird. Why would WinWord set off TCP requests? Pretty awkward, right? Obviously weird. So right away, you can see it's writing to this file, gjugk, right? It's writing to that file. That's an artifact, right? Why does that matter? Well, we see now what they're doing, right? The malicious artifact is WinWord spawning this application, which is then writing these files, which is then sending out TCP requests. So if we can stop any part of this attack, right? If we can say, hey, let's get the hash of this file right here and block it now, they can't spread, right? So we're taking that pyramid of pain and we're going back to the beginning, but we have an artifact now that we can track. Okay, and then we see, hey, they're writing to this file. That's fine. Let's make that not possible, right? We can block the write, or we could say, hey, we know this gjugk.exe file is getting written. That's their malware, right? Their payload. Block that name. Now, you may say, well, why would you block just the name? Well, you can see they keep writing to it. That means the hash is going to change every single time they write to it. Block the name for now, right? Then we see the IPs here. Block those for now, right? We can block every step of it. And what does that do? This is where the click moment happens for me. Years ago, someone said, do all that. And in my head, I just kept saying to myself, why? They can just change their payload to have a new IP address, a new name, and someone, I can't remember who it was, but said it to me. That's the point. They should have to go back and change all that, right? The attack still exists. You haven't figured out the core root yet of how they got in. But if you're an attacker, if you're a pen tester, if I do all this, right, and I get this far, and you block me here, block me there, right? If you do all that, what incentive, for one, do I have to go back and change my whole attack methodology, right? Because I have to change how this operates, I have to change how this operates, I have to change the IPs, I have to stand up new domains, I have to do everything. If I do all that, what's the likelihood you don't just block me again because you're on your shit, right? That's where the aha moment went is, oh, I'm not trying to, at this point in an attack, I'm not trying to prevent the attack because they already found a way in. We can figure the root cause out later. I'm trying to make it so annoying for you because you have to go change everything you're doing every time you try that you're eventually going to go, screw these people, dude. I'm not fighting these, right? And then you move on. Then I find the initial attack, right? And you can do those together, right? You could have an investigation team with an incident response team. I'm just saying, at this point, we're looking for artifacts or indicators, right? Okay, so the artifacts are pieces left over. Now you can see, this is what I was talking about earlier. You can see the PowerShell.exe. It's not actually PowerShell. It's capital P, capital O, right? PowerShell.exe, and you can see, there you go. The file is modified, dropped for the malicious actor. And you can see they give you the hashes. Again, the hashes are important here. I recommend blocking them, but it's changing every time they write to it, right? I'm assuming it's changing every time they write to it. Anyway, now, a security vendor analyzed the malicious sample for us. Please review the report here. And that's the aha moment to me is stop trying to prevent every attack during an attack, right? Focus more on, let's zoom in, focus more on slowing them down. If you slow them down enough, they will move on. I'm telling you, that's the key. Because unless you're, like I said, unless you're one of these big companies, how much value do you provide to that attacker that's going to spend all their resources on you, right? Because these attackers are opportunistic. If there's 50 opportunities, for instance, the example I use all the time is if you live in a subdivision and every house in that subdivision has their door unlocked, but you just lock it. If I'm a robber, why would I keep trying your door? That's going to be so annoying. Like I come over and I knock on the door, no one answers, I try and open it, it's locked. I'm like, well, crap. Am I going to sit here and go, let me lock pick it? Oh, then that didn't work, right? Let me just break the door down. Why? All the other doors are open, right? But they want yours, right? No, that's not realistic. That's not how attacks happen. Now, if you're an APT target, that's how it would happen, right? They would try everything. But at this point, we're not talking about that. We're talking about slowing down attackers, right? So a process named regidle.exe makes a post request to an IP address based in the US. What is the IP address? Well, we know it's at the bottom here. There we go. Okay. Here we go. US. So you can see HTTP requests. US. There you go. 8080. 96.126.101.6. 96.126.101.6. Now, the actor drops a malicious executable. What is the name of the executable? Well, let's see if we can find it in here, but we already know this because we've seen it 100 times. There we go. gjug, right? That's the one they are writing to. That's the one you can see PowerShell here is writing it. That's the one they're dropping, quote unquote, right? Now, look at this report by Virus Solar. How many vendors? This is a different report, by the way. How many vendors reported this? Well, there's 9. Pretty easy, right? So 9. So right there, if I ran this in any.run or anything else, I would notice these requests and these artifacts that it's leaving on the machine, these PowerShell requests, stuff like that, and I would build my defense accordingly, right? So right off the bat, we're getting annoying. We're frustrating them, right? But they can change that stuff, right? You can rewrite your whole thing. Cool. Well, now we have network artifacts also belong to the yellow zone. So this is network artifacts. So now we're going to annoy you even more, right? Network artifacts can be detected in Wireshark's PCAP, Snort. We just did a Snort video the other day, that type of thing. Let us use T-Shark to filter out the user agent. So right here, we're looking for things that the network would notice, right? Not artifacts written on a machine, but things like the user agents, like this. You can see the post requests have, those are all encoded post requests. That's weird. It's not necessarily inherently weird, but it's weird to do it all with these malicious IPs, that type of stuff. It's just suspicious, I should say, not malicious. So you can see here, they're using T-Shark. We just did a Snort video where you can make rules that just, you can run these through, but you can see they said, hey, T-Shark, we only want to see the user agent, and they look at the PCAP file, and the user agent is MSI 7.0, Well, some people say this, or I see this question a lot too, and they say, that's great that this is whatever, that like the user agent, it's, if you don't know, the user agent is like what user you're accessing with. So what Internet Explorer, Mozilla Firefox, Google Chrome, whatever, that's usually what it's tied to and what version. And let me tell you, this is one of the easiest things to defend. And a lot of people say, well, how? I can't block user agents. Let me ask you this. If your company only allows Firefox, Chrome, and Explorer, and then you see something like this, well, not this because this is Internet Explorer, but if you see something else, right? Let's say Brave, whatever, or Nmap has their own user agent, stuff like that. If you see that in there, that's pretty weird. If everything in your network is showing one thing, and then you see a couple of these odd ones, right? Because if you guys don't know, when you do basic IT, you guys should all be using imaged machines, meaning everyone's using the same golden image, right? Theoretically. And that golden image should only have what you're allowed to use on it. So if you can say, I know for a fact we should not be using Mozilla here, but we see this right here, a little weird, right? So here you can see this is the Emotet downloader, right? So this is the Trojan where they had Emotet, and it says what is the most, these are the most common user agent strings. So they're saying, hey, look out for these because these are the user agents they're using, right? The other thing is, what if you're using Chrome, right? And I'm just making numbers up here, but you're using Chrome 9.0, and every machine on your network has 9.0, and you keep seeing 7.0. They might know you use Chrome, but they don't know what version you're using. So they're trying to emulate you. So understand that that can be suspicious too. So what browser uses the user agent string shown in the screenshot above? That's Internet Explorer. How many post requests are in the screenshot for the PCAP file? That's right here. There's 6 of them. Not sure why that question even exists. It's pretty obvious. Now, here's where we start to get to where we're really annoying them, right? Because here we can see they left stealer.exe, right? That's that googe whatever.exe, those things. Those files, the exe files and stuff, those are their tools. That's what they're running on your machine, right? Those are what they're trying to do. If you get to this stage and let's say stealer.exe is probably going to try and take something, creds or whatever, right? If you get to where you can block these, that is going to frustrate them. What I mean by that is, how do attackers avoid all that other crap that we just had to go through, right? How do they avoid the network monitoring, the hash signatures, all that stuff? Well, the signatures we saw was easy. The IP addresses was easy, all that stuff. But what if they just send you an email and you download the file and run it? That's super simple. That avoids all your defenses, right? Because the person just ran it for them, right? That's how most attacks happen. Well, if we get to a point where we can block this, and I don't mean just block it, but like look at what it's doing, that type of thing, right? you can see here, the antivirus signature rules, all that stuff. If you can get to that point where you're blocking this, you're stopping this, the attacker is going to move on. At least from an opportunistic attacker. Why? Because the only way I can get this to now run in your environment is change it. Well, if they sent this in a phishing email, for instance, they probably sent it to hundreds, if not thousands of people. Why would they change the malware for you, right? We're back to the door thing. Why would they change how they're doing their attack just to break down your door? What do you have that they need that bad, right? Especially when they have probably 20 other people that did click it as well and didn't find it. So keep that in mind. Just keep that in your head that that's how you should be processing it, right? Is I'm just trying to slow them down. If they go through the effort to keep changing all this stuff, and we're defending, we're blocking, we're doing everything, we're manipulating, we're doing great, and they still are getting in, they want it. And what I mean is they want something in that network, and it's not, you must have a lot of money in that network that I don't know about. But okay, so Malware Bazaar and Malshare are good resources to provide you with access to the samples, malicious feeds, and your results, right? For detection rules, this SOC Prime is a great place. It's a great platform where security professionals share their detection rules. Basically, repository for people to share detection rules, right? A lot of people use Yara rules and stuff like that. They can share all that. Now, here's another thing that most people don't know about, and this is one thing that VirusTotal is good at, is fuzzy hashing. So fuzzy hashing is where they're hashing the files, and they're looking so basically taking the hashes, they can find similar, not the same, similar patterns. And so what that means is you might change something in for instance, Mimikatz, right? Mimikatz is a very popular tool, but any attacker worth their salt doesn't use Mimikatz out of the box, right? They change it, right? They just change a lot of the code. They have to. But if it's still Mimikatz, meaning the code still exists where those patterns still lie, the fuzzy hashing will find similarities because there's a string that is the same, right? There's strings, like a large group of them. And so it can tell you, hey, this is very similar to this, right? And that's kind of what they're saying is fuzzy hashing is very good because they can tell you, hey, it's very similar. It's not the same, but it's very similar. And that's enough for me in certain instances, right? If LinPs, Mimikatz, any of that stuff, if I saw that, say it's very similar, there's never a application out there that should be similar to that, right? With what they do with the code, the way it's written and stuff, why would you ever send me an application that even has similarities in there? It shouldn't, right? Now, if I analyzed it and noticed that there needs to be, okay, maybe, but so now provide the method used to determine similarities, fuzzy hashing, provide the alternate name. This is just, if you go to the actual SSD, it'll tell you it's context triggered piecewise hashes, right? Okay, so we've gotten to where we stopped their tools, and now we're making it very annoying for them, right? But now we made it challenging. Now we're on to, let's make it tough. This is the TTPs. This is your MITRE ATT&CK framework, tactics, techniques, and procedures. One thing I will say is this is one of the greatest things that's ever come out, in my opinion, for defenders. MITRE ATT&CK framework, we've talked about it. I have a video on it. This whole MITRE ATT&CK framework means steps taken by adversaries to achieve their goal. This is why it's so good. If you can detect and respond to TTPs quickly, you leave the adversary almost no chance. You have their playbooks, if they're APTs, right? Even not APTs, because a lot of them follow the same. You have their playbooks handed to you on a silver platter. You know what they're going to do. Use it, right? So what I mean by that is, it says here, for example, you could detect a pass the hash attack using Windows event log monitoring and remediate it. You would be able to find the compromised host very quickly, stop the lateral movement inside the network. That's easy. Why? Because attack MITRE framework, right? If you go here and you say pass the hash, here's one of the pass the hash toolkits, whatever, blah, blah, blah. It's going to tell you all of the information, right? Pass the hash. Here's all the different APTs that use them. Here's blah, 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 all this stuff, right? You can go through and find the exact playbook. So you could find the exact command they ran, put it in MITRE ATT&CK framework, and see remediation steps, see how to fix it. right? Well, guess what? At this point, the attacker has two options, right? Two options. Go back, do more research, training, and reconfigure those custom tools they used to get in, because it wasn't, you already blocked the signature, you already blocked the known IPs, you already blocked all that. So that means they're using a custom tool. They're not using something out of the box because you've already blocked all that. So they go back and reconfigure and restructure their attack, which is start back from square one, or go to another target. What are you going to do? I can promise you, if I send this to 50 people, think about spam. Think about when they send out mass emails, right? And they're trying to get people to click on something to get you to buy them an Amazon card, right? Why do they keep sending it to you if every single time you block it or every single time you just delete it, right? It's because they're sending out in mass. They don't really care that you didn't respond because 10 other people did. That's all they need, right? Same thing here. They don't care that you blocked them typically, unless you're a target, because they're just looking for an opportunity in. If you can go this far and stop them, you're going to slow them down and make it so tough on them that they're going to go, we're not redoing everything. We'll go back and just send it out to more people, right? Exactly right here. Sounds less time consuming and less resource consuming, right? So navigate to attack MITRE framework. How many techniques fall under exfiltration? I think it said. We'll go to techniques and we'll go to exfiltration. And there are, where did it say? It's techniques right there. 9. There you go. Now, Chimera is a China-based hacking group that has been active since 2018. You can go to search. This is what's awesome about this attack framework is you can say Chimera, let's see, and just scroll through and you can see right here, they use Cobalt Strike. Cobalt Strike's a great C2 framework. That's what they're using. Easy peasy, right? Now we can go to view the site. Hopefully we can still do it. We can. Okay. This one was a little bit confusing because it just was, but I did it backwards. I did it from bottom up because I wanted to be able to see this. These artifacts can present themselves as C2 traffic, for example. So C2 traffic artifacts, what do we think? Right now, we'll leave it as network. These addresses, that's IPs because it literally says addresses in the name. These signatures can be used to attribute payloads and artifacts to an actor. Well, I would say, for now, we'll say hash values, but the attacker's plan and objectives, that's their tools. The attacker has utilized these to accomplish their objectives. Did I miss one? I feel like I'm missing one. Has utilized these to accomplish their objectives. Tactics, technique. Where the heck is... I'm missing one. Oh, here we go. Typo squatting. That's domain names, right? Oh, I missed one. All right. The artifacts can present themselves as C2 traffic. That's got to be network. These addresses, that's got to be IPs. Attacker purchased this and used them. Typo squatting, that's obviously domain names. So we got one of them mixed up. These signatures can be used to attribute payloads and artifacts to an actor. That's got to be attacker utilized these to accomplish their objective. Hold on, we got one of them is wrong because the hash is wrong. Let's see. These signatures can be used to attribute payload and artifacts to an attacker. I think that's actually hash. So I just had these backwards then. The attacker's plan and objectives. The attacker has utilized these to accomplish their objectives. Oh, that's tools. I had them backwards. There you go. Tryhackme pyramids complete. Easy peasy. And then conclusion, everything you learned. Now, the main takeaway I want you guys to understand, and I want it to click because this is the best way to handle incident response is, in my opinion, I'll say in my opinion, is yes, there are times you can completely stop it, right? That's definitely doable. I'm not saying it's not, right? If you identified within seconds or minutes or whatever of how they got in, you can close that hole, right? That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about once an attacker is on the network. So someone downloads malicious software and tries to run it. The attacker's in, right? Theoretically, like even if it didn't run, whatever, the attacker got through all your defenses and got a file in there. That's when you start, let's slow them way down because sometimes there are ways they can bypass all that with just sending emails and stuff like that, or messages or vishing or all that stuff. slow them way down to the point where the attacker is just getting frustrated and they're going through this pyramid of pain and they're saying, screw this, dude, this isn't worth it. That's what you should take away from this. Slow them down. The slower you can make an attacker go, right, the faster you can respond, because you have all this free time you just gave yourself, right? Before, you're usually, when an incident happens, you're panicking. You guys are balls to the wall, go, 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 go. You're out of time. You have to get results now, 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 now. But if you can slow them down, you just gave yourself a ton of time to catch up, figure out what's going on, do the research, do all that stuff. So just take that into consideration when you guys do this. Your goal should be to slow the attacker to a halt, frustrate them, and make them move on, not necessarily just instantly be able to prevent them from doing anything, because that's not realistic. So hopefully this helps, guys, and hopefully this clicks for you guys. I'm going to skip through most of the beginning ones, but this one, I really wanted to emphasize some of that stuff. So thank you, guys. Have a great day.